federal government granted them $1.8 million to buy a machine.
Wow.
So,
grants,
I mean,
grants are good.
Yeah. So there are all sorts of programs because people close to the industry and really looking at the economics of it. This is incredibly important from a national, from a jobs standpoint, from an effectiveness standpoint, from a national security standpoint. I mean, this is incredibly important.
Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of the Robert Patton Global Podcast. I'm here with Jason Azevedo. He's a millionaire entrepreneur here. And that's what we like to bring on here to show you how to do it yourself. And Jason, how he built his empire. How you doing today, sir?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Excellent. I just got out of a nice bath, did a little jog, got a little prep. I like to get pumped up before these so that I got some energy for the conversation.
Sweet.
So, you I was reading about you, and you've just recently, or not, I don't know how recently it is, but started like farming.
Yeah, we gave up beach life in LA to go start a farm in Texas.
Oh, wow.
So we've very, very different environment, but we're absolutely loving it. And definitely learning a lot as we go, and had the good grace of some very nice neighbors and really a community that comes together to really help people figure it out.
Yeah, we just bought like 6 chickens, so we're in that community also.
Yeah, my wife, she decided she wanted to start chickens from eggs and incubate them and do the whole thing.
Wow!
So we had 28 chickens living in our house because they were born in the house. So
yeah, we have 6 chickens in the house at the moment. They're about 2 weeks old, and my wife she's managing it. I like it. I like the idea of getting eggs and having little critters, pecking around the yard and stuff. We had some at our ranch in Texas when I was a young boy, so I have fond memories of them. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, we had one die, which was but it was, I think it came to us sick because that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's someone told me that one of the ranchers around here, he took me aside. He goes, "Hey, I'm just going to tell you something. Part of ranching is things die."
Yeah.
He goes, it's a life cycle around here. He goes, so don't get yourself down. He goes, just keep on going. And I was like, okay, well, that's good to hear from someone who's been doing cattle out here since the 1830s. I figure they kind of know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Got good advice. You surround yourself with people who kind of, what they're doing. And in a lot of instances, that's one of the principles of success is, just surround yourself with people who you want to grow to be more like.
It's that age-old thing. You're the sum of the 5 closest people. Make sure that those people are good.
Yeah, exactly. That's very much better worded than I put it. But so how did you have a mentor? You were 15 when you started.
Yeah, so we were fortunate. So we started the company when I was 15. My brother was 20. And we, like every other person, thought, oh, well, what we're going to do? We're going to print T-shirts. We kind of got off the ground with that. In the coming year or so, we realized that wasn't going to make us enough money. so
many shirt companies.
We started in February of 2007. So right as we got equipment and got things rolling, here comes the late February or the late 2007, early 2008 crash, and it just wipes out everything.
Yeah.
Which we learned by fire. I mean, the good thing is we were so broke and so young that it didn't matter. Like we didn't lose anything because we had nothing to lose. And
most people might give up right there. They might be like,
yeah. and there were times we thought about it. But what was also really cool, and we learned from a very young age, there's an older series of people in any industry, and they normally are starting to be put out to pasture. Almost, it's it's sad. We let these giant information sources retire out, don't really give them anywhere to pass their knowledge on to, or their stories. Well, we were the opposite. We're like, you know what? Anybody who will talk to us, just, you've been in the industry for a long time. You know what you do? Like, what would you have done? What's changed? And we'd have these massive conversations with gods of the industry. And it helped us avoid a ton of holes and potholes.
Yeah.
And so we really built it by doing that and getting out there and just asking the stupidest questions on earth, but to us they were valuable. And I push people on that all the time. Is you really want to, like, go get that information, and usually it's the older people that are going to want to pass it on because it's part of their legacy. I mean, with our current company, we buy legacy U.S. manufacturing companies. Nice. And then we're buying them. We're preserving the legacy in the local town because it's incredibly important to local communities to have that. And then we're actually going to transfer 100% of the ownership to the employees afterwards.
Wow. That's cool.
But when we go into the sellers, it's the same conversation we were having when we were 15. Just tell me your story. Tell me, like, how did this company get built? How did you guys structure it? Like, tell me about the times that things went really bad. And you get these amazing stories. So we tell people all the time, go find those legacies from people, because you can avoid so many headaches, because they'll be like, oh yeah, don't do that. No, that was a bad decision. I tried that.
Oh, wow. I'm get my notepad out here because this is an interesting one. You have an interesting position in the United States at the moment, where everyone is screaming for Made in America, but it's not competitive in ways to manufacture in America.
Yeah, that is a fallacy.
Misnomer. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'll give you an example. And so nobody has to believe me.
No, I want to learn.
The largest contract manufacturer in China, Foxconn, is building a plant in the U.S.
Nice.
So it's just not true anymore. That it's automatically cheaper to build in China. There are certain things that still make sense in low-wage environments. Textile sewing. It's been proven it can be done in the U.S. Again, American Apparel proved this over and over again years ago. But for some super low-end stuff, yes, okay. If you have little figurines that have to be hand painted by somebody painstakingly, okay, not the right choice in the U.S. probably at this point in time. But that is the broader sense of stuff. It is actually incredibly competitive in the U.S. It's frankly, it's just turning. That's what we specialize in, is revitalizing manufacturing. Because what you can't do is do it the way you were doing it 40, 50, 60 years ago in the U.S. Things have changed. Products are very different now too. When the U.S. started losing a lot of its manufacturing, products were pretty simple. Like it was a piece of metal that was painted, and that was your whole product. And now products are like, well, I need to injection mold this part, and then I need this component. So you got to think about it much more as a supply chain than you do as a singular process. And that transition is happening in the U.S. It's happening very, very rapidly. And
what regions are these textile like plants in? I know of one, and it's Origin, Maine. Jocko Willink. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah.
So I know he was. He's been talking about his plant, and we reached out to them because we would like to be made in America.
I mean, here's the thing: is LA is still a massive sewing. If you're talking about sewing and stuff, there are tons of production that still goes on down there. And it's revving up. But you can find plants throughout the U.S. of all sorts of stuff. I mean, I go back to with our private equity fund, as we're buying these legacy companies. I mean, last week I drove from Dallas, Texas, Well, I drove from Austin, Texas to Dallas, Texas, Dallas, Texas to Little Rock, Arkansas to Memphis, Memphis to Cocoa Beach, Florida, because there's plants everywhere, and we're looking at all these, and we are very insistent that we get in there and really see the plants, meet the people, feel the energy that comes off of them, and there's a ton of really cool stuff being done in the U.S. and it's speeding up more and more, especially with all of the supply chain craziness that's going on in the world right now.
Right. And the prices in China have risen. You know, it's you can't get a pair of underwear for 10 cents anymore. It's like it's dollars, you know, it's up and up, and then you have to ship it, and then you have the tariffs, and then trucking it, and gas prices, and then just the waiting for the extra time, and
and China doesn't do terms on production, so it's 100% cash before it gets on that boat, and it just the competitive edge was there for quite some time. In my opinion, it's virtually gone. I mean, like I said, of course there are certain things, but our plants. I'm able to pull production from Chinese companies on a pretty regular basis.
I mean, I would definitely be interested. We order about 30,000 units a month, and it just is subsidized, or we want to have some made in America, if not all of it made in America, you know. But I'm very happy with our current company. We've been with them since 2014, and they kill it. And we've tried multiple other manufacturing plants in China, and ultimately we have been let down. But this one just kept its consistency. Yeah. And so it's kind of like a loyalty thing with them also. And, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But
of course, I mean, we have we've had these conversations with lots of people. Like, oh, should we move our production to you guys? And we're like, well, why are you moving your production? Let's just start there. Because if you've got something that's working, it's working well. I mean, I am Mr. Made America. I want to see as many things come to local communities as physically possible. So I am biased here. But it's the security you get from it being in your backyard is really, really nice. I mean, hey, I want to know, are my orders going to be here on time? I can just go drive there or fly there and be done. So there's a huge trend going in that direction right now.
So, like, you're seeing the total impact of having manufacturing stay in America or be brought back to America, and the impact it's having on the locals in these communities. That's something I guess a lot of us are detached from. Can you speak on that at all?
Yeah. So, I mean, what we try to make people realize is manufacturing jobs are not what a lot of people thought about them for the last 30, 40 years. That grueling, dangerous, rough environment, it's just not the reality anymore. If you look at like Tesla's new plants, they're white floors, brightly lit, safety mechanisms everywhere. I mean, these are good paying, good quality jobs. And the barrier to entry for them is non-existent. Work hard and learn on the job. I mean, really find another industry that has the power to completely change a community. So these jobs, if you keep them in these local communities, and a lot of the plants that we look at are in really, really small locales. We've got one right now. The company employs more people than the population of the town. Wow. The main plant's in. So you can imagine how important that set of jobs is for that community. And what will happen is a lot of times is either these manufacturing companies, the owner doesn't have a succession plan necessarily in place. So the plant's either going to get closed, or it's going to be bought by a conglomerate that closes a ton of plants and puts them into one mega plant. We don't necessarily believe, we don't believe in that style. We really are, let's keep them in that local community. Let's add more business to them. Let's regionalize it but still connect it to our broader company so that they get all the benefits of being associated with a large a large company, but they get to keep that hometownness. There's one that it's also very incredibly important to understand the communities that you're in with these companies. I give the example of if you have someone working on a Friday night during high school football season in California, it doesn't matter. You do that in Cedar Creek, Texas, where I live, you can actually mess up their social network because Friday night football is where you see all the guys you went to school with when you were young and all that. Like that, it's a pillar of that community. So we really try to take the time and try to dive into what makes this community special. What is it like living here? What is it like being around, being within it? And what you end up finding out is if you can get these people good jobs, that they're well taken care of and they're revitalized, they will go into their community and they will do the same because they have the energy and the money to do it. And the care. If you badly treat your employees, they're going to leave work. They're going to be tired. They're going to be sore. They're going to have all these problems. And guess what? You're going to have a grumpy, sore, tired person going out in the community. Mm-hmm. So you can, from within, you can save these communities and build them all back, build them strong and healthy by just giving good work. So we constantly tell people, especially any of our investors, like if you want to go see one of the plants, we'll show you how important this really is. And frankly, it's a good business. So that's the other part of it. It's like, hey, it's not like it's even all altruistic. It's just do a good job and you get a good product.
We're in that farm life. Get that. So you don't have the Google Fiber. I'm taking it.
No. When we moved to our house, we didn't have a mailbox. Wow. So we're out in the country.
Nice.
So
and in the Austin area?
Yeah, so we're about 35 minutes southeast of Austin.
Southeast. Okay, that's on the other side because we come in from the north, I think, from San Antonio. I'm in Colorado, but my team is in San Antonio, and we do a lot of dealings in Austin. A lot of people living there.
There's a lot of people moving here.
I mean, and all like a lot of big names. My friend Michael Malice, he's a best-selling author. He's been on here a couple of times, and then obviously Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, and you now. You're in good company.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because I have so many friends that have moved here from all over the place that I'm actually seeing my friends that I left more often than when we were living all in the same place before.
And so you came from like San Francisco?
So the last 6 years I've been living in Hermosa, Redondo Beach, California.
Where's that?
LA.
Okay. Because I lived in Orange County for my high school years and some of my adult years. Nice state. A lot of people left. I left way like in 2005 because it was just so expensive, and I was making $17 an hour, which was pretty good at the time, I thought. And I was like, I'm going to move to Texas and I'm going to make $17 an hour there, and I'm going to be living like a king. But the job that I had in California I was a human resources representative, and then same job in Texas was $12. So
yeah,
and then I joined the Army.
Tax.
No income tax. I like Texas. I live in Colorado now. I like Colorado. Just there's other laws here that are friendly to people like me. But anywho, so you're liking the switch then?
Love it. My wife and I are we actually did it kind of like checked in with each other about 6 months ago, and we're like, okay, is it that? And my wife was like, you know what? I thought there was gonna be things I wasn't crazy about, but there was gonna be a trade-off. She goes, I am absolutely in love. This is my favorite place I've ever lived. I'm like, perfect. So it's going well.
That's beautiful. Because we moved. I was living in Colorado Springs, and my wife wanted to get out of the city and into the mountains. And I was like, oh, my friends are here. We have UFC fight night parties every weekend. I don't want to move out of the city, but like you just said, we see them more now that we live in the mountains, because we have a kind of a cool little spot here, and they like to come up here and get out of the city to see us. So,
well, and it's like us, we're on a ranch, so everyone's like, wait, I can come out and ride ATVs, play with little animals, and they're like, yeah, we're going to your house, come on.
Yeah. So. Right on. And I assume you had a nice exit from LA, like as far as whatever, you probably sold your house and then bought a house in Austin.
Yeah. So yeah, we sold in LA, bought in Texas. That very, very different markets.
Wow.
So we're out in a very rural area. So it was a complete change of pace. And absolutely loved it.
What are your work days like?
It depends. With the private equity firm, we're always on. So it floats. Like I'll actually be flying back to California tomorrow, and then we'll be. Last week I spent 4 or 5 days on the road, going and seeing plants, and then sometimes it'll be like, hey, we're going to stay in Texas for a week or two. So there's a lot of, because of the breadth and the scope of what we're doing being national, there's a lot of road time. We spend a lot of time out seeing companies or driving around to plants, and it's and because most of these are in smaller communities, there's usually not an airport incredibly close, so there's a lot of driving.
Do you have your own plane?
No.
My wife, I have a picture of a plane on every vision board I've ever had, and she's like, that's absurd, we do not need a plane. And I'm like, well, we're not there yet anyway.
On the 17-hour drive from Cocoa Beach or from Little Rock or Northern Arkansas to Cocoa Beach, the conversation about what does it take to get a plane did come up multiple times.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're thinking about maybe leasing one at some point just to try it out. We're not really at that level yet, and just like buying one just is absurd. But we're actually in our meeting this morning, we're coming out with a new pair of sheath called the G6, and we wanted to just rent a G6, but just not even fly it, just to do a photo shoot on the tarmac or whatever.
Well, so when that whole G6 song came out, Gulfstream did not make a G6 yet.
That's hilarious.
They had to some crazy story about like they had to go rush the release of the G6 because everyone's like, I want one, and they're like, it doesn't exist yet.
Right? That's funny. We should make the G7 Summit. I was going to say G7, but there was probably the G5, and whatever rapper was. Oh yeah. They were like, I want the G6.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just exist. Like,
okay. So, you're driving around, you're flying all these plants. Where could someone who's in the business of buying from manufacturers find these manufacturing facilities? Like it's hard to Google them. Yeah, so
my brother heads up a lot of our bird dogging. It is a laborious process. I mean, he and me too, but him largely. It is at one point it was 100 and something listings a week we'd go through. So, and of that, you're maybe going to get 4 that you want to look at.
Okay.
So we have some baseline criteria that we know works for us. There's industries that we really don't like to build in, just because we don't necessarily know them as well and there's so many opportunities available right now, that we get very picky. Yeah. But I mean, it's everything from like business listing sites to a network of friends that we've made with brokers, all stuff that they're like, hey, I've got this new thing. It's not out yet, but you guys got to see this. And then, I mean, you tell everybody what you're doing.
But like me, I've tried to find manufacturing plants, and you try to Google it, and it's just like nothing. And
manufacturers are not known for marketing themselves well. It's just so what I tell everybody is a really good thing to do. If you're trying to find somebody that's good, find their supplier. So say you're gonna be making, or you've got you're making underwear, and you want to find a big sew house. Okay, well, find whoever supplies the sewing machines. Call them and go, who's your biggest client in Northern California? Or
I mean, I'm looking for Colorado. I mean,
but any of that is find. If the people aren't good at marketing themselves, find the suppliers, because they have a built-in incentive to tell you the best one that they know of. Because
but don't you have an incentive to market these places you're buying to get them more business? I mean,
yes. So when we buy out of a company, we market. One of our general partners, his whole entire background is in creative and branding and all that. So we come in and dump a ton of energy into making the image of these companies correct and making them appear places. That is not the norm. The manufacturing industry is not. We've got a group that right now that we're looking at that they, for all intents and purposes, they paint they paint very large items, but their customers don't Google. The things they paint are so large that there's only certain people in the country, so that they don't need to market. Now, granted, this group actually happens to have very good marketing materials, but they don't need it because the typical consumer would never qualify.
And their demand, they already have more than they can probably manage.
Yeah.
And because that's what happened with Orange and Main. We tried to get production through them, just one item, and they're like, sorry, we're like completely booked and there's no openings ever.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've ran into multiple things where people won't even pick up the phone anymore. They're like, I'm booked out for 2025. Bye.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, it's a good time to be in the manufacturing space.
Well, and that's what happened initially. My very first call, before I had ever even started manufacturing, I was just kind of doing research. I was able to find a plant in North Carolina somehow. And I've never been able to find them again, although I guess if I really tried, I probably could. But I remember them basically laughing me off the phone, like, you want how many pairs, with that, like we produce for Jockey. Yeah. In fact, they kind of accused me of stealing Jockey's design. And it was kind of rude because I have my own patent and design, and it's nothing like Jockey's at all, except that they're both underwear. But it was like the arrogance. They're like, so sorry, I had like a little bit of a bad experience.
No, but see here, the thing is that is the other side of this coin, especially in the US. A lot of manufacturers, in my opinion, have forgotten that their biggest customers started as little guys. Yeah. And like really start trying to foster growing one of those relationships. Everybody out there I just want my 5 biggest customers, and well, that's not the reality. And what happens if one of those guys goes down? So we try to balance ours where we've got prototype level work, we've got mass production style work that these are some of the biggest names in the country, and really trying to balance. Hey, where do these projects make sense? It is really a very focused and important thing that most people they'll ignore, and they don't have their own kind of incubator for their new clients.
That's something that needs to be developed, I guess. Is there not a database? There's no database for these manufacturing plants?
There is, I think it's NAM, National Association of Manufacturers, that has a really good kind of grasp on it. The long and short of it is, most of the time these are going to be very not very well marketed organizations.
Unlisted. Yeah, they seem to be like unlisted. It's like they're trying to keep themselves a secret almost.
Yeah, the amount of times I've gone to plants that didn't have the company's name or logo on the building, and you're just like, guys, come on there. Yeah, we've been making the same part for 35 years. We don't really care.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so then you have another successful manufacturer. I'm not sure how their business is doing right now, but Mike Lindell from My Pillow, and they're like, manufacturer right here in Wisconsin, and they all hold up their pillows and wave, and they look happy. That is kind of what you would hope to see, but they're just like invisible to people like me. And here's an interesting scenario that happened a couple of weeks ago. We went to a trade show in Denver, the International Sportsman's Expo, and been there a few times, typically do pretty well. Always the only underwear company there, except this time there was another underwear company, Moongata. Shout out to Wade. He was made in America. So he's like 2 booths down from us, which was a whole thing in itself. Like they should have put us on opposite sides of the whole event, Yeah. But we see, we come in early and we see this other booth too, and nobody was there yet, but it was kind of set up. So I'm like, I go check it out. It's underwear, but it's underwear and it's made in America. And we go to the website and every pair was $82. And I was just like, yowzas, is that what it takes to be made in America? I mean, like, is that what you have to charge? Because that's untenable for, most companies.
Yeah. I mean, there's for every time I say that there's a cost-effective way to produce in America, there's also very ineffective cost structures in the US. Like you can't take like a low-wage country like China. You can kind of stone's throw and find a bunch of cheap manufacturers.
Right. In
the US, you need to find efficient manufacturers because they're all competing with the base knowledge of the fact that labor is expensive. So some guys, their way of competing is just they increase the price. Mm-hmm. Other people spend a lot of time focused on processes and people and the right machinery. And now they don't have to compete on the price. They can actually stay very competitive on their pricing because they've invested in making the process very, very efficient.
Exactly, like McDonald's or something.
Exactly. I mean, frankly, that's what McDonald's did. Is they would, hey, labor's very expensive. Everything in this business is really expensive, and they took a hamburger and dropped the price of it through the floor. Mm-hmm. But and McDonald's uses some of the best beef in the United States because they have such buying power now. So that's a great example of if you focus on process, the labor aspect becomes not as important. Mm-hmm. A lot of people want to just go, oh shucks, labor is expensive. That's my excuse for why I'm not competitive. And it's like, well, great, you can sit there and make that excuse, or you could fix it and have a very profitable company. Whatever you choose.
Right. The labor is an issue, but I mean, from what I've heard, these, China is making more and more millionaires, so their standard of living as a country is growing, and a lot of companies are moving away from China because the price has gone up, and I feel like China is going through its industrial age, like we went through, and they're kind of coming out of it almost in some respects. Maybe that's just an assumption, but it's shifting to Vietnam and Sri Lanka and Turkey and other countries. So it's possible that China will end up being kind of like America at some point where they're past the manufacturing stage of development. Maybe.
I don't think I don't think I think there's a rebalancing that's going to be happening, and it is happening right now. A lot of people have been living on a lot of false pretenses that were very true 20 years ago. Like it's cheaper automatically in a low wage country. Manufacturing is not a good job for people. Like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, some more of that was true. We've got to reevaluate what's sitting in front of us. And by reevaluating is going, hey, if Foxconn has decided to build a plant in the US, chances are they've figured out that it's cheaper and better for them to be here. We should be paying attention. That is the proof's in the pudding. It's not somebody out evangelizing about it. It's happening.
Yeah.
So, and I try to make sure everyone knows this. No, the global supply chain is going to rebalance.
Yes.
We're going to figure out what is the right thing to do where. And fuel costs, the reality is they're never really going to get better. They're just going to continue to get worse. And we are consuming a lot more stuff than we did 50 years ago. I mean, it's the manufacturing sector has to be strong because we really, really like to consume things nowadays, and we are speeding up, not down.
No. Yeah. Well, so you said like finding the most efficient place to manufacture is like a principle of economics. Like if, you can make corn really good in Kentucky, then you'll be the main supplier of corn. And if they make oak or whatever in different areas of the world, wherever they specialize in making these products, because they make them the most efficient there, then that's kind of how things have shifted, I guess. And I'm really very happy with the quality of our product. Some people say the quality from China is shit, but Apple's made in China.
Yeah, and that's another one of those false pretenses that people keep on repeating. Chinese products are garbage. No, they're not.
They used to be.
They used to be.
Yeah.
But now, the iPhone is made in China. You're correct. Like we gotta take these 20, 30-year-old ideas out of our heads. It's a different scope. The world has changed just a little bit in the last 20, 30 years. But yet people keep on repeating that the same sound bites, and it's like, no, that's not true anymore.
Yeah. So have you heard, I was a couple of years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, we had this guy working with me in New York, and he was telling me about a guy who had a manufacturing plant in New York, and what he was talking to him about producing sheath there. And he said that the government was about to start subsidizing manufacturing again in America. And so that the pricing would be competitive, and it was going to be this whole thing. It never materialized. Have you heard anything about subsidizing manufacturing to bring it back?
Oh yeah, it's. Okay. That's a very big thing. Especially if the U.S. government has figured out this is very important.
Okay.
And to be honest, that Foxconn plant has a bunch of tax subsidies associated to it.
Okay.
So it is incredibly common. Now they're not just walking around with a checkbook and handing free checks for everybody. That's not how it goes. But we were actually on a call with a company the other day that we were looking to possibly acquire. And the federal government granted them $1.8 million to buy a machine.
Wow.
So,
grants are good.
Yeah. So there are all sorts of programs, because it goes back to people close to the industry and really looking at the economics of it. This is incredibly important from a jobs standpoint, from an effectiveness standpoint, from a national security standpoint. This is incredibly important that the manufacturing industry is healthy and growing, and it's healthy. It's the healthiest that I've ever seen in my life in the U.S. And it's just growing leaps and bounds. And technology has caught up so well that it makes these jobs very good jobs. One of our plants the other day, we took a welder. We bought a large robotic welding system, and we took the guy who was actually welding and told him, "Hey, this is coming in." And he got a little nervous, kind of like, "Oh, it's going to take my job." Yeah. And then, but for us, we're not thinking about it like that. So finally, I think with my brother, he goes, "I think he's freaked out." So we went to talk to him like, "Do you realize what you're going to do now? You're going to run the robot that does the welding, because you have the knowledge of how a weld is supposed to look and how it's supposed to function. So you're going to have this robot do that. Now what I've done is I've made you a revitalized employee that has a skill set that they didn't before. We're getting significantly more production out of the same person, and every single piece is flawless." Wow. So because we're consuming so much more, the robotics, I hear this from people all the time. They're like, robotics automation going to take all the jobs. No, it's not. We are consuming more and more and more every day. That means for every person, we need to get more and more units out. Like it's not a 1-for-1 trade. I mean, almost every manufacturer I talk to right now has at least 2 or 3 of their clients that are saying, "I will take everything you can give me. If you can give me double, I'll take double." And that is just consistent across the market, the industry. Right.
What do you mean double? Like double production?
I've got a client that they produce their product in a California plant of ours. They have outright said, if we can get them 3 times their current production, they'll buy it in perpetuity. They're just like, how much ever you guys can get out the door, we will buy. And this is not a one thing here, one thing there. No, almost every plant we look at, they are the OEMs and the customers are begging to expand.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, because I want to get in touch with some of these companies, but they're, like I said, it's hard to find. So hopefully, maybe later you can.
Yeah, afterwards, I'll try to send you some links on kind of places you can at least start looking on it. Yeah,
because it's just it would be a nice option to provide. I would like to provide that as an option, like at least start off with a Made in America pair, see how it does, and if that's the one that goes, slowly transition, and then we'll have more control over it. Like we just brought one of our warehouses back. We were 3PLing it, third party, whatever, and we just decided to bring it back in house. And like my wife and I are actually doing a part of the orders every day, and it gives us more control over the operation. We can see, hey, that's not on the website, but we have 50 of them right here. Let me put it on. Or in this instance, if we had a manufacturer, hey, we need this, and I know it doesn't quite work like that because there's schedules and everything, but having someone relatively local, I feel like could improve our capability of production and,
Yeah, I mean, it's we see it with clients of ours all the time, where we are able to drastically reduce their on-hand inventories because the change time for us is so incredible. I mean, I've got a client, they make a lighting product, and they've got 3 or 4 different colors. And we are almost there, that they'll be able to, in real time, at the end of each day, output from their website, because they're selling 24 hours a day. They're going international right now and stuff. And our team will paint whatever color ratios they want the next day.
Oh, wow.
So their inventory level is perfectly floated at all times. We're actively working on that because we know we started looking at the modern supply chain.
Yep.
And the old days of building 50,000 units, putting them in a warehouse, and I hope they sell, and I hope there was nothing wrong with the design. and all of these hopes, which are never true.
Yeah.
They now, hey, I just need 24, 48 hours notice.
Wow.
But it took us lots of focus on revitalizing the process by which we do things. So it's you can't use the old tricks and go, oh, well, why can't I match the current market? I think Apple is, at any given time, they only have 6 days worth of iPhones.
Wow.
Because they know that they find flaws, they find issues, they don't want all that inventory on their books. I mean, just really think about the amount of supply chain craziness they have to only have 6 days stock. Like, it's just insane. But they figured out that is what the modern market requires. So you have to come up with a process to match it.
Do you think that these Chinese manufacturers or our American manufacturers kind of learning from all of the progress the Chinese manufacturers have made over the past 30 years and bringing that, you know what I mean?
Some are, some are not.
Okay.
There are some people that would like to keep their head in the sand and go, no, this is the way it's done. It's like, okay. There's this word called progress.
Yeah.
It's a different world, guys.
With the machines, and I mean, I don't know how many machines are involved in the textile process. I actually don't know that much about how my own underwear gets made, unless I know how to do it from scratch with scissors, but I imagine they have these huge machines that cut the patterns, and I don't even sew the stitching. But
so you'd be amazed. Most textiles are still hand sewn.
Okay.
It is incredibly difficult to make robotic sewing systems. My first company was in the apparel industry, and I remember them talking about how do you make a robotic sewing system, now they've gotten there because the robotics and the automation have just gotten. I mean, the Da Vinci robot that they're using for surgeries should prove anything. You can do anything now.
Right.
But humans are incredibly effective at sewing.
Right.
The dexterity of their fingers is just unbelievable. So
I still can't compete with that yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's so the majority of textiles are still hand sewn.
Interesting. Yeah, well, and that's what this dude from Mungata was telling me. He has a team of sewers and cut and sew people, but it's just like, we're doing 30,000 units, that's a month. But here's what happened last year, 2020, that was last year, with the whole supply chain backup and congestion, we had to wait. We were waiting for 6 months for an order. So the supply we had was greatly diminished, and we were paying all these advertisers that we had already kind of contracted deals with, and we're paying advertising when we don't really have that much product to sell because it's on a boat. And so we decided, okay, well, to prevent that from happening again, let's just order 30,000 units a month, every month. And so we constantly have more coming in. And now we have too much because the economy kind of flip-flopped a little bit, where we had a record year last year, and we had a record year every year since starting. This year, little flat and possibly down from last year, but we're ordering more underwear, so it's kind of like, well, this is kind of backwards.
Yeah, we had a color of powder coat that one of our plants had to buy the other day. And we get on the call that there's a shortage of this color. And I'm talking to the rep from the company. He goes, I need you to place, I'm like, when's it going to be back in stock? He goes, no clue. Hopefully by 24.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, we use this color every single day, buddy. He goes, I need you to give me an order for 2 years worth of it. Or a year, it was some ridiculous amount. And I'm like, what? what are you talking about? He goes, I need to have the order in my hand to give you any product. And he goes, and you can cancel it anytime. He goes, but I have to have it showing that this color is the important one right now, because he goes, we don't know. He goes, it'll be years before we catch up on being back in stock. He goes, the raw ingredients we need to do it just don't exist. So, and we're hearing that in a lot of markets right now, where it's just the like quotes on raw materials for steel used to be good for like 90 days. There's one steel vendor that has changed to 24 hours. So you have to get the job bid, and you have to get it landed, and you got to order the material in 24 hours if you want the price to hold. So it's just a crazy time.
It is.
But in crazy times come usually the best progress. So
yeah, you got to adjust and adapt and overcome the obstacles that present themselves. My brother and I actually run Sheath, which is pretty cool that you and your brother also run your company. What's your company called?
MRCA.
MRCA, but it's a private equity firm. So
it's a private equity firm. And MRCA stands for the Manufacturing Revitalization Corporation of America, or MRCA.
MRCA. Like
the branding team layered above a bunch of things up on that one.
No, that's good. That's funny, because America. That's why? Because America.
Exactly.
Exactly. We're the best that ever existed. They say not to start a business with family members, but you've been doing it for quite some time now.
Yeah. I would not recommend starting a business with family members. What my brother and I have is special.
Yeah.
It has not always been special. We've worked together a long time, but especially when we were younger, it would almost get to blows. And I mean, there would be loud screaming competitions to see who, because come find out, the way your idea is right is if it's the loudest. Yes. But at the same time, we would go full blast. We're both very, very passionate people when we're doing things. We'd go full blast yelling at each other, and literally not 30 seconds later, we're standing on a production line working together. And people are like, how do you do that? I'm like, there's still a job to do. Whether what we've got going on as brothers, we'll deal with that. But there's still a job to do. So we know that we have to shut up and do the job. Also, the second we leave work, we're brothers again.
Nice.
And that is incredibly important. I've had the role of CEO the majority of the time that we've been in business. And I am 5 years younger than my brother.
I was going to ask you that.
That balance for most people doesn't work. The second we leave that building, we are brothers again. The hierarchy switches. So it's and people have watched it. They're like, what? I'm like, no, it's a respect thing. We respect the job, and then we respect each other as brothers. We try not to blend the two too much, because it is hard. I would not recommend it to pretty much anybody. But we've figured it out. We've got a good system that works. It's not flawless, but the reality is no business partnership is ever easy.
It's like a marriage.
I tell everybody, it's like a marriage that's all about money. It's actually worse than a marriage, because it's a marriage really just built on financial transactions. So I have been incredibly fortunate with the partnership that I've got. We drove 17 hours the other day. 5 of us in a Suburban crossing half the country, and we got out all still best buddies and hanging out. So
hell yeah, that's what's up.
But it takes work, and we make sure that we push for connecting each other. I brought my entire leadership team out to twice now out to the to our ranch, and I shut down all their internet so they can't get on the internet. and there's not much cell reception out here. And we have a 2 or 3 day reconnect of understanding where we're at, who's where, what, how are we feeling about things, how are we relating to each other, because you got to work on the partnership. If you don't, I've seen what can happen, and it's messy on the back end.
Wow, that's really cool. We have a really small kind of tight-knit team that when we do events, we all go together and we all stay in the same Airbnb, and we haven't done what you just said about like turning off electronics and stuff. That would be pretty cool to really get connected on a interpersonal basis, and not always be distracted by your phone and stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was, when I brought them out here, it was actually really interesting. So they arrived in Texas having no clue what they were about to go through. All they knew was that they were being brought to Texas. So we go, they did, I had everyone do yoga in the morning. Nice. We then went into basically onto patio and went into meetings. And they were very structured agendas. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, we're done. We're going to do this. Take quads out. Go in the pool. We're going to go axe throwing. And we had all this stuff. And my team came back so much stronger in 48 hours. Wow. That they're like, this was it didn't feel like a work event. I'm like, yeah, because you guys work all day long. I trust you guys to work. What I needed is to get your personalities back out, because we start locking those up, and especially because what we do is it is labor intensive. So you get burnt out over time. So really is, how do you pull those personalities out of everybody? And the cell phone is the most wonderful thing on earth, except it's a really, really bad ability to constantly keep you connected to work outside
of where you are.
So they came out here and they're like, wait, we get no phones? I'm like, you're not even allowed to have them on you. Like, go put them in a whole different room. Oh, okay, but what if something happens? I'm like, everyone's been instructed that they are to call my wife, and my wife will come out and get me if there's a major issue that any one of us needs to know about. And they're like, okay, we're gonna try this. So
wow, that sounds really fun though, because we're just too connected to stuff that's not right in front of us, and you get disconnected from the people right around you because you're out in the ether. I really appreciate you coming on, Jason. We're coming up on the time here. I am inspired by your business, MRCA. I'm excited to look into this further, because I've been running into dead ends every time we try to find manufacturing, not even in America, but anywhere outside of China. It's kind of not that easy.
Yeah, it's almost amazing that there's not like an Alibaba for everywhere else.
Yeah.
We've wondered this many times. I'm like, that's how everyone finds their Chinese manufacturers. Someone needs to do it in the US.
Yeah, I give you that opportunity. Go ahead. You could be the one. I think it would be like very successful, because people like me, and I talk to so many people, they'll come to me, I'm going to start my company, and and I'll give them as much advice as I can. It is interesting about the manufacturing, because if I don't give out my manufacturer, it is a secret.
Oh yeah.
It's a weird thing.
No. You find a good one, you hold it as close to your chest as possible, and go, no, that. Oh yeah, we see this all the time, and it makes it. And almost every company has a non-disclosure with their manufacturer, so the manufacturers can't say, "I'm building this" either. Yeah, so they end up in this spot where they have to hide in the shadows all day long,
and that makes it more difficult for them to expand. But it is kind of the nature of the beast, I think. But hopefully that can change, at least to the point where people can find U.S. manufacturers and revitalize that whole industry and make America great again. LOL. Just kidding. Thank you, though, Jason, for coming on. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to reconnect at some point and possibly do this again, in a year or so, and see how far things have come.
I'd love to.
If it works out that way. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining me. This was very mind-blowing. I'm super excited about this movement to bring manufacturing back to America. Stay motivated, stay inspired, and I'll see you next time. All right. Bye, everyone.